The MP-18 manufactured by Theodor Bergmann Abteilung Waffenbau was the first practical submachine gun used in combat. It was introduced into service in 1918 by the German Army during World War I as the primary weapon of the Sturmtruppen, assault groups specialized in trench combat. Although MP-18 production ended in the 1920s, its design formed the basis of most submachine guns manufactured between 1920 and 1960. The weapon's impact on the major powers at the time has been overstated in light of the outsized influence it had on weapons from World War II and beyond. As Paul Corning observes in Machine Guns and the Great War, it is frequently repeated as fact the Bergmann Musketeer had so impressed the Allies that they specifically banned its production and military issue. In fact, no such prohibition appears in the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Corning goes on to speculate that, far from making a great impression on the Allies, the MP-18 had barely registered on the collective consciousness of the victors, arguing that even on the eve of World War II, the former Allies remained unconvinced of the utility of this entire class of weapon. History. What became known as the submachine gun had its genesis in the early 20th century and developed around the concepts of infiltration and fire and movement, specifically for the task of clearing trenches of enemy soldiers, an environment within which engagements were unlikely to occur beyond a range of a few feet. In 1915, the German Rifle Testing Commission at Spandau decided to develop a new weapon for trench warfare, an attempt to modify existing semi-automatic pistols, specifically the Luger and C-96 Mauser fail, as accurate aimed fire in full automatic mode was impossible due to the lightweight and high rate of fire of 1,200 rounds per minute. The Commission determined that a completely new kind of weapon was needed. Hugo Schmeisser, working for the Bergmann Waffenfabrik, was part of a team composed of Theodor Bergmann and a few other technicians. They designed a new type of weapon to fulfill the requirements, which was designated the machine in Pistol 18I. It is not clear what the I designation is intended to indicate, although its successor, the MP-28, was designated the machine and Pistol 28-2. Full-scale production did not begin until early 1918. Though technically not the world's first submachine gun, being beaten by the double-barreled Italian Vilipairese of 1915. In modern usage of the term, the MP-18 is considered the world's first submachine gun since the Vilipairese had been designed to be used as a light machine gun on aircraft before it was adapted to infantry use as a single-barreled shoulder-fired weapon in late 1918. Service history. The MP-18 primarily served in final stages of World War I in 1918, especially in the so-called Kaiserschlacht offensive. At least 5,000 MP-18.1s were built and used during World War I, based upon observed serial number ranges of captured weapons. However, it is possible that up to 10,000 were built for the war. Though production was outlawed by the Treaty of Versailles, manufacture continued in secret into the early 1920s. The final production total ended at around 35,000. The MP-18 proved to be an excellent weapon. Its concept was well proven in trench fighting. The basic design directly influenced later submachine gun designs and showed its superiority over the regular infantry rifle in urban, mobile, and guerrilla warfare. The MP-18 served with German police and paramilitary forces after the end of the war. It was widely used in combat by the Freikorps von EPP against the Spartacus League in Bavaria and by other Freikorps in Berlin, where its efficiency in urban combat was demonstrated. Since the Treaty of Versailles prohibited the use and manufacture of pistols with a barrel over 4 inches and/or a magazine capacity over 8, rounds. All trommel magazines trademark .08 were destroyed. All the limited conflicts between 1920 and 1940 saw an increasing use of this new class of weapons, first in South America during the Chaco War, then in Europe during the Spanish Civil War, and in China during the Japanese invasion, where its use by well-trained Chinese troops was costly for the invaders, as in the Battle of Shanghai, where fierce street fights prefigured World War II urban combat of Stalingrad, Warsaw, Vienna and Berlin, since the treaty allowed the Weimar Republic to keep a small quantity of submachine guns for police use. A few hundred MP-18.1s were modified to accept Schmeiss's original 20-round magazine design. This modification, conducted by Hanel Waffenfabrik, required removal of the existing magazine well collar and replacement with a different one. These weapons were overstamped with the date 1920 on the receiver and magazine well to show they were legitimate weapons owned by the Weimar Republic and not war-bringbacks or clandestine weapons. Bergmann sold the license of the MP-18 1 to SIG Switzerland. The Swiss-made model was known as SIG Bergmann 1920. It existed in 30 Luger, 9mm Parabellum and 7.63mm Mauser. The Bergmann MP-18.1 represents a milestone both in terms of armament technology and warfare tactics. It opened the way for a whole new class of weapons and triggered the research for lighter automatic firearms to be used by mobile troops. Its first direct competitors did not see service in World War I, but most of them saw use in all the limited conflicts taking place in the interwar period. Evolution. The Chinese produced a modified MP-18 in Tsingtao with the assistance of Heinrich Vollmer. The French, despite being moderately interested by this class of armament because they had designed and introduced in service many semi-automatic and automatic weapons, immediately launched studies based on captured MP-18s. The design of the Star 1922 was adopted and the MAS 1924 entered service and was used in colonial war. The French MAS 35 and MAS 38 derived from one of the many prototypes of the immediate post-war. The MP-28 was produced by Hanel under the supervision of Hugo Schmeisser. It was copied by the Second Spanish Republic under the code name Naranjero. The Naranjero was chambered in 9mm Largo. The Austrian Steyr MP-34 was created by a team of technicians led by Louis Stang, who designed a submachine gun for Rheinmetall in 1919 and used Bergmann's MG-15 to design the MG-30. The SIG Bergmann 1920 was used by Finland and Estonia. It was the inspiration for the Estonian Talon 1923 and the Finnish Suomi Model 31, which in turn inspired Dejturev for his PPD-34. Emil Bergmann, Theodor Bergmann's son, designed the MP-32 that evolved into the MP-34 as adopted by Denmark before to receive the MP-35 name when adopted by Nassland, Wehrmacht in 1935. This submachine gun is often mistaken with the Mitraillette 34, a MP-28 made in Belgium by Pieper Bayard, former Bergmann licensed manufacturer, with the MP-34 made by Steyr. It is easy to identify the Bergmann MP-32, 34/35 or its final version 35/1 since the cocking lever works exactly like a rifle bolt. In 1940, with a pressing need for individual automatic weapons, the British copied the MP-28 and developed the Lanchester submachine gun for the Royal Navy, solidly built with the use of brass for the magazine well, and a bayonet mount. It entered service in 1940. The magazine and the bolt of the MP28 could be used in the Lanchester. The OVP 1918, an offspring of Reveille's Viliparis in 1915, inspired Heinrich Vollmer for his telescopic bolt used in the VPM 1930 MP, MP38, MP40 and MP41. The MP18 remained in limited service with the German armed forces during the Second World War, specifically with the Sicherheitsdienst, later Eastern Foreign Divisions of the Waffen-SS, and also with Kriegsmarine coastal artillery units. Design details: a soundly engineered piece of equipment with near-commercial grade fittings and finish. The MP18 was a heavy weapon, weighing over 5 kilograms when fully loaded. The receiver tube was very thick, compared with later World War II submachine guns with half that thickness or less, such as the Sten gun or MP40. Though Schmeisser designed a conventional 20-round capacity box magazine for the weapon, the testing commission, for practical reasons, insisted that the MP18 be adapted to use the 32-round trademark 08 Luger snail drum magazine that was widely used with the long-barreled version of the P08 pistol known as the artillery model. Like many other open-bolt designs, the MP18 was prone to accidental discharge. If the buttstock of a loaded gun was given a hard knock while the bolt was fully forward, the gun could accidentally fire because of the bolt overcoming the action spring resistance and moving rearward enough to pick up a round, chamber it and fire. Soldiers liked to leave the bolt of the firearm in this closed forward position, so dirt and debris would not enter the barrel and chamber. This bolt closure practice acted as a dust cover for the weapon's chamber, preventing a malfunction from occurring because of the presence of foreign debris, but making accidental discharge more likely. The German police asked for an external safety on their MP18s, and a universal bolt locking safety was added on all the submachine guns used by the police. Later submachine gun designs like the Sten and the MP40 were modified to allow the cocking handle to be pushed inwards to lock the closed bolt to the tubular receiver casing. This design change prevented accidental discharges when the bolt was left forward and a loaded magazine was inserted. Operation: the original MP18.1 was designed to use the snail drum magazine of the Luger artillery model pistol. This rotary design type of magazine holds 32 rounds of 9mm parabellum, the user having to load the magazine with a proprietary loading tool. A special sleeve was required when the snail drum was used on the MP18 to stop the snail drum from being inserted too far in the magazine well. After 1920, the MP18 was modified to use a straight magazine similar to those used in the later developed MP40 submachine gun. The MP18 could only fire in the fully automatic mode. Its successor, the MP28 halves, received a modified mechanism with a selector for single-shot of fully automatic fire. Britain directly copied the MP28 at the beginning of World War II. The result was the Lanchester submachine gun, which saw service with the Royal Navy. The British Sten used the side-mounted magazine configuration and a simplified version of the open-bolt firing operating system of the MP28. The Soviet Union made a similar use of MP18 design in the PPD-40 submachine gun in 1934. Further development of the PPD-40 led to the simplified, and mass-produced PPSH-41. Uses